In the next slide, then, we want to discuss that main argument, that strong thesis, right? I mean, certain things we're not going to have a conversation about. The sky is blue. No one wants to have a conversation about that. Oxygen is necessary for life. Universal health coverage is good. Everyone already knows, like everyone is talking about that. But it doesn't mean you cannot talk about the sky being blue. It doesn't mean you cannot talk about oxygen being vital or that universal health coverage. You shouldn't be talking about it. You have to have an angle. Everyone has already agreed, for example, universal health coverage has to exist. I think where people are disagreeing is how to implement it, how to fund it. You see, so then if you realize that, then you can get something that is controversial, not controversial in the sense that you'll be upsetting people, but controversial because you have very strong pro and con arguments, right? That's what we mean by controversial. It's people are still debating back and forth. That makes it interesting. And so if we go to our anthrax example, we want to think about not just, oh, anthrax is bad. People know that. Like, what is it extra that we can do? What can we say? Maybe we want to think about the fact that it's a One Health kind of a situation where we don't want to think about humans. We also have to think about animals. We need to strengthen our health systems, but also strengthen health systems for animals. That's a fair point. You have to be clear. Where do you stand? You cannot be there, playing the referee, jumping from one side to another. Otherwise, like, what's the point? Right? You can still give the counter arguments, but take a clear stand. Where do you stand on this argument? Again, support with evidence. We said that before. We cannot overemphasize it. The one thing that we found, Desmond and myself, reading a lot of pieces, is concision and precision. Try to use as few words as possible to bring out the ideas. I get that as difficult, especially for those of us that have had an academic background. We're taught to write, we always try to put in a lot of uncertainty, and that means a lot of verbiage, a lot of words. So let's try and keep it short, go straight to the point, make it as easy as possible. And sometimes just state it, right? Like just say it. What do you want us to understand from this? Let it be clear. Everyone should read it and know. Yeah. So we're looking at an example here of the former head of Africa's CDC, John Kengasong, who's currently at PEPFAR. And he wrote this regarding control and prevention, COVID-19. I would like for us to see if we can identify some of those elements here. Let's find the hook first. Last month, in my role as leader of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, I asked that donations of COVID-19 vaccines to Africa be momentarily delayed until the third and fourth quarter of the year. I don't know about you, but the first thing I'm wondering here is like, whoa, why would the head of a big public health, like, it's COVID, like, why? That's the first thing that comes to mind. Like, there's something that's wrong here. Why wouldn't you just why don't you just get all of it? Why don't you get everything? And so I want to read more. I think he's got my attention here. At the moment, Africa's most pressing need is administering the vaccines we have to willing people. He's introducing something here, willing people. Okay, so there's something that we need to care about here. Every country is unique in what it needs to fight COVID-19, but logistical challenges and issues of vaccine hesitancy, similar to those seen in other places around the world, have momentarily outstripped shortages for the continent. We do not want vaccines to go to waste. Now that supply is not a primary challenge, we need to focus on better delivery. And think about this. If you're just written about, let's get vaccines to Africa, everyone agrees, everyone should get vaccines, at least almost everyone at that time in this thing. But here, what his angle is one of this issue with logistics, there's an issue with vaccine hesitancy. That's where the controversy lies. It's not in whether the vaccine should have been donated or not. Okay, that's a different point. Yes, so if we go into the next slide, please. So the call to action, once again, people should be able to do something after they've read your piece. And these people should be identified. It shouldn't be like we often do, let's all XYZ for climate change. Who is all? How do you do that, right? So Is there some government, and not just government, is there an actual government entity, the public, I don't know, the national public agency of something that needs to do? What do they need to do? Is there a policy they need to push forward? Is there a project they need to revive? You can say it clearly. What can your readers do? Is there maybe a petition you want them to sign? And is there a link that they can click to? So something really actionable. It has to be something that they can do. Whoever is reading it and its index should be able to do. So be specific. Creating urgency is give a time. This needs to be done by this time. Otherwise, this will happen. So people get it. This needs to be done by X date. Otherwise, Y. And so the minister must reverse XYZ decision. That's an example. Yes. So the next slide, please. So now we get back to writing. We touched on it a little bit, but let's be a bit more specific. And getting back to an example of, we spoke about the anthrax outbreak in Nigeria. We're talking about writing simply. If you are within this space, it is likely that you will feel that you need to, not naturally, but not, we often tend to write. I saw one example where we write and we use acronyms, for example. We say things like LMIC. Maybe not everyone understands LMIC. Or we say UNHCR. Not everyone understands that. But even more than that, as a scientist, you probably go out there and be like, bacillosis, Bacillus anthracis. You're coming up with the big words and you're using SCARs and stuff like that. The people reading you probably don't have that background. So try to make it simple, because whenever people feel there is a barrier to understanding, if they have to read one sentence twice to get what you are saying, they'll stop reading or you will lose them. Whatever point was made will be lost because now they're trying to understand this other thing, and that's not good. Keep it simple as possible. An example is if you've written something, check Hemingway editor online, post it there, and it will let you know if your writing is simple or not. It's free. Hemingway editor. Avoid acronyms and jargons. I've said that. Okay. It's easy. Once you're in the space, you start using those words, SOP and all those. Nah, stop it. Keep it simple. Cite your references always and get the data out there, and get really recent references too. This is very important. Use the active voice. Don't say things like the action has to be done, yes, but by who? I did this. For example, I wrote an op-ed, not the op-ed was written. Okay? Because when I say when the op-ed was written, who wrote the op-ed? Who did the action? And again, it comes from the academic background. We've been taught to do things like that. Write it clearly every time. Make sure we know who is doing the action. It's important in an op-ed. And please, please, please avoid cliches. And if you don't know the cliches, read How Not to Write About Global Health. Okay, read that one. I mean, it just solves it for you. Yeah. So examples of the active versus passive voice. We've already done one, right? The dog chased the cat versus the cat was chased by the dog. The action here, we're looking at who is doing the action, who is doing the chasing. The dog chased the cat, right? Versus the cat was chased by the dog. So the issue with passive is almost always like something is done onto someone and then they just receive on the receiving end, and there's not much, there's a feeling in the human being, in the human mind, that there's not much you can do about it. And that's not quite good. People need to feel like they're empowered. They can do something about whatever you're talking about. So they need to know who's doing what and what they can do about it. So that's really where it lies. So you want to understand that difference. So more tips, again, do your research. So stay abreast of the research, whether that's go on Google Scholar or PubMed, read the most recent articles, see what people have had to say, check past op-eds, what have people had to say. Use stories. Why? Because data alone is boring. Data is very boring, and you will lose people with data. You need to get people by getting them to care. And it's always easier to care when there's some humanity to the story. If a situation wasn't great, like what did it make you feel? How were you feeling? What did you see? What did you smell? And all those things. What was that like in your life? If that was you, if it's someone else, try to bring it in. Desmond spoke earlier about the situation that happened with his cousin. That was a palpable story, speaking about an actual human being and then setting the stage before speaking about this other example and then the data that goes with it. It's always good to have that element, which is often called pathos. Okay, so you bring some kind of humanity to it. Be yourself. I mean, it's easy to try and replicate what other people are doing, but you have your own voice. All of us have our own voices. So there's no point trying to sound like someone else. People will see or read through it quite easily. Right. So one of the things that often happens, you see, when you see a document like this one, you see red, ink, everything. We're used to just thinking about things from a failure standpoint, but this is emphasizing the fact that, you know, you're going to be editing. Okay. So when you're writing you have to be in a learning mindset, not in one of thinking about success or failure. So what is the learning mindset? You want to make sure that, like we said, you have an actual stance and you have an actual opinion. And so you have to be critical about your stance and your opinion. You need to know the strengths in your arguments and the gaps. Like you said, are there counter arguments and what can you bring about those arguments? So that's quite important. Again, reviewing the literature, I mean, we've said it maybe 5 times, but it doesn't hurt to say it again. What have other experts said? What are the important findings and what do they mean? Because sometimes, I would say a lot of times you have to interpret those to the people reading for them. Again, we said you have to take a stance. Do you agree or not? Like, don't just state it. Do you agree or not? And why? Keep it short, 800 words max, right? This is supposed to be read usually in a newspaper or on the phone as we're going to work, right? You're in the subway or on the bus. You want to read it really quickly. You don't want a dissertation. You want something that's short. And once you've done that, you've put those things together. Now, you need to get it out there, right? You need to make sure that someone actually publishes it. So you're going to need to pitch it. It's almost like marketing. And like we said earlier, the most important thing is timing. Because we all have a short attention span today, thanks to social media. There's certain things that we care about now we weren't caring about 2 weeks ago, and the things we were caring about 2 weeks ago we don't care about right now. So for example, the Niger coup has gone up there, but then Niger has been discussed and the Sahel region has been discussed for at least 6-7 years. And for a while we weren't talking about it anymore. It was Mali, and then Mali died down, and now it's Niger because there's a coup. So all of a sudden it's a timely situation where if you have something to share, you can share about it. So the piece has to be timely because then everyone wants to talk about it. Then you want to choose the right outlet. The different outlets, where whichever country you're in, whichever space you're in, some of them are more, big guns. I'm thinking New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian. We know them. We know those big ones. But there are other ones that may be less restricted in what they're trying to publish and that you can get access to. So you need to know if this is something that works for their audience. That also means that presupposes that you actually know what your audience wants. And to know it, just look at what they've been publishing. What have they been publishing? And are you writing something along the same lines? If you're not, then it's probably not the right target, and you need to find the right target for you. Reach out to the editor. Usually there's an editor for opinion pieces. You can find them online and you can reach out to them. So you can email them, and you have to be straight, direct to the point once more, because they have a lot of stuff, a lot of pieces being pitched to them. Why should they publish it? Why is it important right now? That's why we spoke about timeliness. What is your topic exactly? Why is it relevant? Why is it unique? Let them know. Make it easy for them. Hey, hi, I'm so-and-so person. I'm writing about XYZ because this is what's happening. Here's my position. Here's why I think it would be a good piece for your journal. And then, here's why it's unique. Maybe I'm this one person that's in Nigeria that can actually give you expertise around anthrax. Tailor your pitch. Don't give one pitch to all the outlets, because again, if you're going for a satirical outlet, you're not going to give them the same pitch as if you're going for, more, I don't know if we say non-satirical outlet, a more regular outlet. Or if you're going, again, the example about anthrax in Nigeria, if I'm pitching to BBC Pidgin News, I would not pitch the same way I'm pitching to BBC World News. Pidgin News, I'll probably try and use some Pidgin in there, use a few cracking jokes and stuff like that, and then I probably would get in. If I'm pitching to Al Jazeera, I wouldn't pitch as though I'm pitching to El País. It's not the same thing. And then you want to follow up. Usually, they would respond to you within 3 days. If they don't, you have to follow up. And if they still don't, consider that they're not going to publish it, you can submit somewhere else.
Yeah, and I would add, Ulrick, that you have to determine how timely your piece is. Typically, if it's a very timely piece, they respond almost immediately. If you let your piece stay with them, especially the big outlets, right? You submit to big outlets, sometimes they don't respond at all, right? And if you wait for a week or two, then your piece loses traction because that whatever you're writing about is no longer relevant. So if it's a very timely piece, give it a day or two, follow up. If nothing, then pitch elsewhere before you lose that piece.
Yeah, 100. So here's an example of a pitch, right? In the subject, like we said, you have to be clear. The op-ed pitch for what? Future of work in the age of automation. You have this here. We're giving it here just as a baseline to exemplify what you said earlier. And so again, you shouldn't just copy paste this and send to different outlets. We're just trying to show what a concrete example will be. So I'm writing to pitch an op-ed on the issue of vaccine inequity in global health. As you know, a bill was introduced in Parliament last week to blah, blah, blah. So what this just did was timeliness. Why should we care about it right now? The vaccine inequity in global health is a big issue, but this bill is making it even more important why it needs to be out there. So the outbreak in this case would make it timely to speak about anthrax, for example, and maybe other diseases. Maybe anthrax is your gateway to speak about other diseases. And then as you can read through it, obviously you can see that the picture is showing why it's unique, why the person feels like other people should learn about this, and why the journal should be interested in trying getting this published. And again, like we said, make sure that, give them 3, maximum 4 days. If they don't get back to you, you can send them another email, give them another day. If they don't get back to you, pitch it somewhere else. Right. Now we get to the fun stuff, right? I know we've all heard about this. It's been all over the news, ChatGPT and all forms of large language models and artificial intelligence and all these things. So what is the role of artificial intelligence in something like this? Technically, it's unlimited. You can literally use it from everything. Remember the very first point Desmond was raising was just like idea generation and whatnot. So you can use it literally for everything. But the question is, how do you use it properly? So that's where the issue is. If you're going to use AI, you'll probably find a lot of videos online on how to prompt so that you get the most out of it. Here we've just summarized a few things you want to care about when you're prompting. So when you're writing that question to the AI, you want to give it a task, a context, an example, a persona, a format, and a tone. I'll explain each of them. The task is clearly tell the AI what you want. Maybe you want an idea for an op-ed. So it would be an idea for an op-ed on the recent outbreak of anthrax in Nigeria. What is the context? You usually tell the AI, you say, okay, you are a young veterinary physician in Nigeria, and there's been a recent outbreak of anthrax in Nigeria. You want to write an op-ed to be published in the largest journal in the country. Give maybe 2 or 3 ideas based on, then you give it examples. So you go to that journal or that newspaper and see how many articles they've published in the past, and then maybe find the ones that are the most read or the most publicized, and then put those as examples. Then you want to give it a tone. You want to say, let the title be, do you want it to be professional? Do you want it to be friendly? Do you want it to be satirical? And all these different things. So you give it, and the more you give this information, the more likely the AI is going to work for you. So you could do that for idea generation. You can do that even for writing the piece and everything. But one of the things we want to emphasize is that the AI is not meant to give you a finished product. It's meant to give you some kind of basis on which you can build upon. So if you just took that and submitted to people, it really wouldn't work. You want to use that and then iterate on it until you get to where you want. Especially remember, you have your own voice, right? Even if it wasn't AI, if someone else wrote a piece for you, I'm sure you would read it and think, I wouldn't necessarily say this way, right? Or I don't necessarily share this opinion, and then you would be able to edit it. So I would say be mindful, definitely learn how to use it, be mindful how to use it, and don't fall in the trap of just asking it to do stuff for you, because then you're not special. Anyone else can do it. And we emphasize that your experience, which the AI doesn't have, and your expertise needs to come out through that. So where can you pitch your global health pieces? Obviously, you can pitch it to a number of outlets. We have this published blog, which is 60 platform recommendations. So you can use the short URL there. So if you just type bit.ws/QB38, you should have 50 plus outlets that you can consider for your different outlets. And honestly, for all the ideas I've seen today, for the ones that we asked, I mean, it looks like I think a lot of them would get published. So you should definitely give it a try. So go to that link, which is bit.ws/QB38, and then you'll be able to find a lot of outlets. An alternative would be the piece published by Medical Pie, which you can find also using this title here. The next one, please.
Right, and again, these are quite comprehensive lists, but they're not exhaustive. So do your own research, figure out which platforms. The one caveat, Ulrick, with these lists is that they're somewhat global platforms. If you want to publish in a local newspaper, and we highly encourage that, you can figure out what your local newspaper is, and on their website you can find the editor's email and email them. So these lists are not exhaustive, is my point.